All right, well, let's get started. So thank you all for joining us today on this Tuesday afternoon. I have the pleasure of introducing our speaker, Chinedu Okonkwo. Chinedu has been at IBM for 6 years, and he is certified in IBM Cloud. And today he will be talking about our specific service, IBM Cloud for Virtual Private Cloud. So Chinedu, take it away. Thank you.
Thank you, Danielle. Let's get it. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our weekly or bi-weekly Lunch and Learn or Tech Tuesday. Today, I'll be talking about VPC on IBM Cloud. And so this is my list of items. I'm going to talk about like what a VPC is and why VPC on IBM Cloud, IBM VPC features and capabilities, the use cases for VPC on IBM Cloud, IBM VPC compute performance, and at the end, I'll do a demo. You can ask, so what is a VPC? A VPC, which is a virtual private cloud, is a private cloud in the public cloud that combines the logical isolation and security of a private cloud while including the availability, cost effectiveness, and the scalability of the public cloud. You can say, what does that mean? What is isolation or security? Isolation is a configuration that prevents devices that share the same physical network infrastructure from being able to communicate with each other. And then security is a private, secure, isolated network which you can prevent, which never touches the public internet. With the availability and cost effectiveness, you only pay what you use with the cost, and it's available anytime, anywhere. And you can scale the environment up or down on demand as you need and see fit. So why virtual private cloud on IBM Cloud? And like I mentioned, a virtual private cloud is a logically isolated space, but on an IBM Cloud, you can use it to deploy, secure, and manage virtual cloud resources for your business. A virtual private cloud is a software-defined virtual network on top of the cloud software-defined data center infrastructure. And it's an easy to use API for managing resources, and you can deploy a VPC right from your IBM Cloud account. And the IBM VPC enables like industrial standard, or it's configured to industrial standard network security groups and access control limits to provide network security for your infrastructure. And what are the key advantages of VPC on IBM Cloud? Some of the key advantages are like you can provision 1,000 VMs in less than 4 minutes. And IBM has the best in class VPC network of up to 80 Gbps for virtual server profiles and 100 Gbps networking on bare metal profile. As you can see, AWS has up to 100 Gbps, but only on special profiles and with their cost higher. And also Google Cloud Platform has only up to 24 Gbps and only on oversubscribed resources. And as well as Azure, only have up to 30 Gbps for your Ethernet. And IBM is the only cloud that provides keep your own key or bring your own key data protection with the highest level of security for the FIPS 2 level 4 versus the other cloud vendors. They all only have like a level 3 and level 2 and 3 for their FIPS. IBM also provide IBM VPC also provide like 99.99 SLA availability zones, and each availability zone, each multi-zone region has 3 availability zones that are isolated and logically and also both physically and software defined. And our VPC is like is a developer-friendly REST API that aligns to industrial norms, and you can integrate to your existing tools. And also, what are the benefits of a VPC. One is like the agility, right? You can control the size of your network. That way you can scale up or down on demand based on real time when you need it. With availability, with multi-zone regions and 3 availability zones per region, you can have redundant resources that are highly available when you need it. Security, even though it's a multi-tenant public cloud, all these all the, all the networks are logically isolated. Your data won't be your data and your application won't be shared with other customers using the same infrastructure. And for affordability, you only pay for what you use, so you can scale up or down or turn off when you need and when you want to. So, what is the client value for a VPC? As you can see, the data breach, the average cost of a data breach in the United States today is like 9.4 million. With isolated network on your VPC, you can help reduce. IBM VPC helped address your data breach with isolated networks. And as you can see, also as a client value, this reduces your capex on traditional IT infrastructures because all the network layers are all software defined. So you don't have to buy like your Viata or Cisco switches or load balancers or firewalls. These are all software defined network. And VPC on IBM is purposely built for Power VS, VMware, SAP, IBM Z, and x86 platforms. And we focus on the customers and our clients that are trying to go to like a hybrid cloud infrastructure. And as I've mentioned earlier, IBM Cloud leads in the security and trusted industry-ready cloud. So what are the features and capabilities of VPC on IBM? So these are some of the features and capabilities of the VPC on IBM Cloud. You can define virtual server instances. We have bare metal on VPC and VMware on VPC. And also define your Power VS, set it up on VPC. And as of this fourth quarter, you can also bring your own Microsoft licenses on IBM VPC. On storage, we have a block file, cloud object storage, and snapshot. You can, for your network, the security group, transit gateways, these are all like software defined network functions. And we also have, you can enable these services on your VPC like autoscale groups, snapshots, Veeam backup. And you can deploy your VSIs and your instances using Terraform and schematic. And I've mentioned too, one of the key values of IBM is like you can bring your own key or keep your own key. And we have multi-zone regions that have 3 availability zones in each region. And you can also include IBM Cloud Monitoring and IBM Log Analysis on there. So this is a sample of what VPC looks like on IBM Cloud. And I will mention, as you know, that VPC is like a software-defined network functions, and all these workloads are isolated. That way you can control the inbound and outbound traffic. And all these in these are software-defined functions. The implicit router, the load balancer, the public gateway, VPN gateway, the VPN connections, these are all software-defined network functions. And on my demo, I will show how to set it up. And these are some of the also features of the VPC on IBM Cloud. Like you have multi-zone regions, and in each multi-zone region has 3 availability zones. And each availability zone, you can set up a subnet for your VPC. And you also have like a software control, software-defined access control limits and security groups and load balancers as well. And for the networking section, you can attach a public gateway to your VSI so that you can communicate to the public internet. as same goes for the floating IP. And each virtual server instance has a public IP if you want to, but they always come with a private IP address. And these are the locations of the IBM VPC multi-region zones, right? As you can see, each multi-zone region has 3 availability zones, and we have 9 multi-zone regions: Dallas, Toronto, DC, Sao Paulo, Frankfurt, London, Tokyo, Osaka, and Sydney. What are the use cases for VPC, you might ask? Before I go over to the VPC use cases, who are the target customers that can use a VPC? So anybody using any IBM customer that's using that wants a greater autonomy or rapid provisioning or seeking to move to a cloud native application development, they are our target customers, or any existing IBM bare metal customers that are trying to expand into virtual server, into more virtual servers, or any client looking to bust into the cloud and take advantage of the advanced and the security that IBM Cloud provides. So some of these 3, development and testing, host scale web application, and then extending the capacity to the cloud, are the 3 use cases that I will go over at this moment. And these are the 3 clients: Tueday, Lumina, and SRG technology. Excuse me. So for Tueday, they were trying to implement their newest services, and they were looking for like a cloud platform that could scale up or down to meet varying workload demands. And Tueday was using to also utilize a number of data analytic capabilities as a service while maintaining the highest level of security and control, of which IBM Cloud offers with security. And with VPC on IBM Cloud provided throughout the foundation to build advanced data processing and analytics services. And these throughout solution utilize other IBM services like Kubernetes services, analytics engine, SQL database, cloud object storage, and more. And with this, Tueday was able can provide the right solution as a service to help companies keep people and places as safe and more secure. While for Lumina, they hosted the application on IBM Cloud using on VPC, and they currently deploy like a 3-tier architecture for their Radiant solution, which is an open source search engine that uses machine learning and AI to gather information and analyze and index the information from across the internet from thousands of searches in a matter of minutes. With increasing demand for high-performance computing platform, Lumina was searching for a cloud vendor that would meet a minimum testing benchmark of processing like 2,000 names in 24 hours with fewer than 100 errors. What Lumina found with IBM Cloud and VPC exceeded their expectation. So with IBM Cloud virtual servers on VPC, and including like SQL database, cloud object storage, Kubernetes, containers, and applications like load balancing, Lumina was able to host a highly responsive multi-tier application for actionable information. And with that, they were able, IBM VPC was able to process 8,000 names in 24 hours with 0 errors, which is, like I said, exceeded the expectation of what Lumina was looking for when they started looking to host the application in cloud. And for SRG Group, They were trying to expand their offerings, industry, both vertically and geographically, to grow in education, travel, and government. And they needed an infrastructure to provide like scalability, like we have talked about, reliability or performance, and agility and security of for their unique solution. And also their colo location that they have was aging, and they cannot scale dynamically. So what they found with IBM VPC is that they were able to host uh, their production workloads in our WDC data center, and then move their dev, Q&A, and their workloads to Dallas. And this also utilizing like Vox object storage, cloud internet services, load balancers, which to enable them, excuse me, um, to grow their business requirements. And with that, SRG was able to provide like highly secure solution to help their students, teachers, and schools promote personalized teaching and learning anywhere. And these are all like use cases from customers that have used VPC on IBM Cloud. What are some of the, and then I'll go next is I'm going to go over about the compute and performance of VPC. So IBM VPC has three different profile, right? Depending on what your workload requires. You can have like a more balanced profile, or if you need more compute or more memory, depending on which profile or the workload that you're trying to host on VPC, you can choose which profile that you want. And as you can see, the VPC profiles includes up to like 80 Gbps in networking performance. And this is like a 2 Gbps per vCPU that caps at 80 Gbps. And each network interface can handle about 225 Gbps. And with that, I will go do a demo and show like what excuse me, the VPC looks like and how to deploy that on IBM Cloud. And everybody remembers from where they were when what's it called, the 9/11 happened, right? Or where they were, or what they were doing, to be specific, for the recent one when what's his name, Will Smith. This is a bad reference. Will Smith slapped Chris Rock. And one of the things that you can remember from these two scenarios that I mentioned is that you could remember where you were, or you can remember even if you're not watching the Oscar at the time, you try to get into the newsroom to see what's going on. And what I want you to take away from my presentation and from my demo is that even though it's not in as big magnitude as a 9/11 or the Oscar incidents, what I want you to take away from this is like VPC is like a software-defined network function. That everything that I will show, you could see that I configured software. They're all software-defined, and they're all isolated workloads. And you have fine control of the inbound and outbound traffic. And what I would, so this is what my demo is going to look like, and then I will use a public gateway, VSI, floating IP, and access control limits and security group. So for my demo, I will stand up a VPC on IBM Cloud utilizing 3 zones. And in these 3 zones, I will have on my zone 1 is going to be the Bastion server, which is my jump server. And I'll have zone 2 will be my back end server. My zone 3 will be my front end server. And for you to, I will also enable that to be able to communicate to zone 3, which is going to be my front end server will be the only one that has a floating IP that has an inbound traffic to the internet. And you can only communicate from zone 3 to zone 2. These are what I will show. And I have already stood up zone 1 and 2, and I will stand up zone 3 in my demo because of time so that we're not taking too much time with the demo. So as you can see, you can set up your VPC on IBM Cloud right from your IBM Cloud account. Just go to catalog. You can go to catalog and search VPC, or you can come to the left pane and right here. Let me hover over it. If you hover over that, it shows a VPC infrastructure. And for me to define a VPC, you go to VPCs. Let's wait this to load. I already have one defined, but so depending on which region, like I mentioned in my presentation, there are like 9 regions and 3 availability zones per multi-region. You can decide where you want to host it in Dallas, Frankfurt, Washington D.C. If you're in all these other regions here, but I'm gonna, it's in Dallas. And to create a VPC, I'll just go create a VPC, and then I'll put a name. Let's say demo, and I'll choose a resource group. And you can use a resource group to control how much resources each infrastructure that you set up on IBM Cloud uses. So I'm gonna use like Tueday. You can enable SSH, or you can uncheck those and then set it up in your maintenance security group. And this, like I mentioned on the presentation, that each multi-zone region has 3 availability zones. So those show up whenever you create a VPC. These 3 populates, and you can always edit to the name that you want to call your subnets. You can always edit them from here and just change the name to whatever you want it to be, and that changes. Or if you want to only have like 2 zones, you just delete whichever one that you don't want to have. But since I've already created one already, I wouldn't be creating one right now. I'll just go back. So this is one already created, right? I have the Dallas 1, 2, and 3 are my subnets. They are my availability zones area. And if I go to my subnet 2, you can see I have so what when I created this area, I had my front end subnet, my back end, my front end subnet, my back end subnet, and then my bastion subnet. And the bastion is is my jump server to be able to communicate, to get into like the front end, and then from the front end to the back end. And I reserved a 14 IP, a public gateway for my bastion host. And to create a virtual server instance, as you can see, I already have the bastion server instance created, and the back end PSI virtual server as well already created. And I'm gonna demo how to create an instance and host a web page in less than 5 minutes right here. And I define also, you can define a security group which controls to control my inbound and outbound traffic, and create rules for that. As you can see, I already created my back end and front end security group, but I didn't have any rules attached to them. I'm gonna do that in my presentation or in my demo in shortly. And these are just automatically, whenever you create a VPC, makes that, but we're not gonna be using those. So to create so I'm gonna be creating like a front end virtual server instance. Like to go through my subnet and go to my my subnet, then attach a resources virtual server instance. can always attach, you can attach a bare metal, attach a template or instance group or load balancers here or VPN, but we're only attaching a virtual server instance. So I'll go to create virtual server instance. And as you can see, there's different architectures, right? The x86 architecture or the IBM Z. I'm gonna leave it where it is. And then I'll put the name for my virtual server. So I can have VPC on Prive on and VSI. And then I also make sure that I selected the same resource group as my VPC server or the VPC that I created earlier. And you can add a tag if you want, or management tags. And as you can see here, the operating systems, we have different operating system. You can put your custom image, but I would choose Ubuntu Linux for this demo. And for my profile, like I mentioned, different profiles. It's a balanced profile that I have, but I would change this because I don't need that. Change that to compute. So 2 by 2. Save that, and I'll attach an SSH key. And an SSH key is used to be able to communicate to your server from your remote desktop. So I will attach an SSH key. So you see how I will use my command line on my laptop to access this server. And for this, you can create, if you're trying to create a web page, right? So I'm gonna copy this cloud config file. I'm pasting my user data. It's optional. So this will spin up the WordPress whenever we assign a floating IP to this instance. And then I'll make sure that, so as you can see, every boot volume comes automatically with 100 GB. And since I don't need storage, if you need extra storage, you can create that here. And I'll select network, I'll select the VPC that I already have created. And here, since I already created a security group, so I'll change that to in that to that, so that, and as you can see, the price for the VSI shows up right here. So if you change the operating system, the OS, and add more stuff, so that those prices change as you add or remove things depending on your configuration. And I'll just click create a virtual server. And that's, so now you see it's up and running. And then since I say like my I will have like a front end, which is going to be the public facing, I will attach a floating IP to the front end server. And to do that, I select the front end server, come down here, my networking interface, edit. And I'll select reserve a floating IP and save. Now, if I go, and you can do this on your end as well. If I go to this, if I go to this server, even though it's public facing, it's gonna time out because I have not enabled rules to allow inbound traffic from the front end. So to do that, I'll go to my security group and do It's my front end server because you see there's no rule attached to that. And yeah, in like 30 seconds, this is going to time out. So my front end, it's going to see there's no inbound rules yet. I'm just going to wait for this to time out. But click manage rules. So as you can see, it timed out. So I can now go and allow inbound traffic, and then allow HTTP, and create to allow HTTPS, so it doesn't. Then I'll create to allow ping. And now, like I mentioned, that I want to set up on my presentation, I said the front end should only talk to the back end. So I will set my outbound traffic to only talk to the back end server. So I create outbound TCP and talk to the 8080 port. Security group, back end. So now if I refresh this page, see, so now since I've enabled inbound traffic on HTTP or HTTPS, so if you type this the floating IP for the server we just created, is my virtual servers. So we just created the front end virtual server instance and attach this floating IP. So if you do it on your end, this WordPress page is going to show up. And then now I could try to SSH into my front end on my laptop. So if I go to my command line, I always want to use and I have a Bastion host set up as my jump server, and I use the 5.8, right? And then I'll use the private IP for my front end. So now I'm logged in to the front end that I just created using my Bastion jump server to log into that. And since I enable to only talk to my back end from my front end, if I do or -v -m on my back end, what's that? The IP address of my back end. You see it's gonna time out because we haven't also I haven't enabled incoming traffic on my security group. For the back, just finish refreshing. For my back end, I haven't enabled any rules for inbound traffic. As you can see, we added 4 for the front end, but nothing on the back end. So I'll go to my back end, inbound traffic, create inbound 80. Do HTTP, and then I'll select the security group I want it to come from. It's going to come from the front end. Now, see, it's timed out after 30 seconds. So now if I do, see, it shows on the backend server. And this I added these when I created the backend, where the user data that created the front end, this WordPress address for the front end, I added to just say that you on the backend server. So yeah, this comes to the conclusion of my presentation and for VPC. I don't know if any question or we can